Hello and welcome to another replay analysis. Today I again have a Viserai versus Dash matchup, and this time I'm against someone different. It's against someone I just met on the Flesh and Blood Discord. And yeah, let's get into it. My opponent has decided to go first. There's two reasons for that. Dash likes to go first to maybe set up an item, and also you want to deny Viserai the chance to set up some rune chants on the first turn. So yep, Dash is attacking me with a pistol, I'm blocking out. As I've said before, in the Viserai versus Dash matchup, if I'm the Viserai, I like to go for the more mid-rangey style rather than the OTK route, because a good Dash player can sort of spot when the OTK player has like probably not the greatest hand and like save is full of defense reacts and attack actions, and then the Dash player can just not attack into you and just filter their own hand by pumping resources into their own items, and then just spend the time to find the items without letting the Viserai filter at all. So I think going OTK into Dash is a bit of a death sentence. So I've decided to go more mid-rangey route. That's partly why I blocked to the red read the runes. Especially if my opponent starts with an item, I really can't follow that up with just read the runes and not apply any pressure. And also, right, in this game, we both are using Everfest cards. So you can look out for those. Okay, so I start with Become the Arc Knight. Yeah, like I said, I want to find the Marvin's guys and do that standard cookie cutter turn. Man, why is that so hard to say? And since Become was my only non-attack in my hand, I need to use it if I want to try and trigger Viserai this turn. Of course, I could just use it and not discard anything, and just use it so that Viserai is now active. But I think finding the Marvin's guys is worth it, since I'll be using Become anyway, which is one of the power cards in my deck. So there you go. This is like just the standard Viserai cookie cutter, which like represents so much damage. Marvin Skies with Spellblade Assault. I created 3 rune chants on the back, and this is coming in for a total of 5 damage. And on hit creates another 2 rune chants. And I still have the 1 floating to Rosetta after this, which would be representing a total of 7 damage. So my opponent blocks with Skullcap and a card, takes the Arcane, and now my Rosetta comes in for 7 damage. Okay, so they blocked the 3 rune chants. And take the 4 from Rosetta. And then drawing 4 attacks here, definitely not what you want to see as Viserai. Especially when 3 of those attacks require you to have rune chants beforehand. Yep, so I make a rune chant and then come with a meet and greet. If they take the arcane, it'll have go again. So this is still nice. I'm still presenting some mixed damage here. 1 arcane for physical, and there's an on hit on the meet and greet where they take it, I create a rune chant. So it's pretty nice. And I think, even though Rosetta isn't active, I think I still pitch the Amplify, yeah. Because you really don't want to get in the trap of having Amplify stuck in your arsenal. It is one of those cards that just can get stuck. And also based on my opponent not blocking the meet and greet at all, I can tell that probably is going to take the Rosetta damage. I should put the damage in while I can. And yeah, and we see why my opponent took the damage. They are following up with a high octane. Thankfully, we have a bit of a life buffer. They weren't supposed to pitch to high octane since they got 2 from Teclocor, but yeah, we just like they're gonna use all the resources anyway, so we just let them pitch and they're at 4. So when I see this high octane, I'm thinking I should just block out as much as I can this turn. The high octane turn presents a lot of damage. Oh, right, yeah, I remember they made a small mistake here. They play the Tomb of Vandal before they've actually boosted, so they don't actually have an extra action point yet. So they we rewind that a bit, and then they come in with a T-bone, which is really annoying because it's a 1 damage T-bone, which I'm forced to use equipment for because they did boost. So since my skull cap's only blocking for 1 right now, I just use that. But yeah, so a T-bone's pretty frustrating. And then they use the tomb, and they'll gain 4 lives from this. Yeah, so on the high octane turn, my plan is just try and block out as much damage as I can. Looking at this hand, I believe what I think is I want to just block with my my rattle bones and my other 2 attacks and just arsenal the moderate tide. Blocking with moderate tide is something I definitely avoid doing unless, you know, I'm gonna die. Because moderate tide represents so much damage. Whereas the other 3 right now, you know, yeah, I can. Like, it's not great to block with a Swarming Gloom Veil. That's a very strong card. But when your opponent comes with a high octane, you know, sometimes you need to make that sacrifice. But moderate tide isn't something I want to sacrifice. Yep, so that's a 6 damage throttle. Oh, and they get a Plasma Purify. This is actually looking really scary. This is, I think, my opponent's 3rd turn, they've managed to get Induction Chamber and Purifier. So I'm definitely feeling the pressure right now. And yeah, I start thinking I need to go into a more like aggro sort of plan. Because I will just lose the long game at this point. And they boost T-bone, I'm forced to use equipment again. So yeah, I just use the grasp. It blocks it out completely, and then I think they pistol for 3. And I believe this one I take, like I said. I don't want to block my moderate tide. I'll take 3 damage to keep that. And on my turn, I'll just arsenal and hope for something good. On the bright side, my opponent did end this turn without any counters on their items, but they did still have the Teklo core, so. Drawing a second moderate tide here is a little awkward, because, you know, if you want to moderate tide and moderate tide, like 2 of them together in the same turn can be strong if you have the correct follow-up. So like moderate tide, become the Arc Knight and read the runes, for example, is really strong. But moderate tide, and not doing much after that, or just playing like 1 on attack after that is not great. So, yeah. So I believe I start thinking about how I can spread out my moderate tide turns. Like a moderate tide, just 1 in my hand this turn, and then use 1 for my arsenal next turn. Opponent's coming in for 3, and I actually don't have the cookie cutter turn of Morbin Sky's attack and Rosetta, because I don't have the resources for it. My Morbin Skies is a blue, and my only attack is my other blue. Okay, so I just take that 3 from pistol shot, they could go again, and they come in again for 3, and they still have the other induction chamber, so yeah. And this is what I meant about I'll just lose the long game at this point. It's the pistols with all these items is so efficient. And then they zip a hit with no boost. So I know there's a last attack, I think I just take it. Yep. Start with a moderate tide. Yeah, and I think, yeah, at this point I'm considering whether I want to pitch to this Sonata. Which I think I do. Because if I don't get an attack off the Sonata, it's really bad. So yeah, I think I'm hoping I just get like somewhat of a decent attack off of the Sonata. Because like I said, I'm under a lot of pressure. I need to... It is a bit more of a risky play, pitching my attack to try and get a better one. But I believe the position I'm in right now, I do need to make a play like this. Otherwise, I will just get run over by the items my opponent has got. So, and that extra pitch actually did end up mattering. I would have gotten straight triptych otherwise. So there's one arcane coming at my opponent. And Dread Triptych on a moderate tide turn is, is quite nice. Of course, I was hoping for something like a Rune Flash or something as natural go again, so that Rosetta would be active. But Dread Triptych lets me set up a fair number of rune chants for the next turn, so. Yep, and then I Dread Triptych and I create 4 rune chants off of this. 2 from Viserai triggering and 2 from having played a non-attack. They already have 2 floating for the arcane, so I know I'm not getting arcane in this turn. But this is threatening an on-hit of creating 2 more rune chants, so. Yeah, so I get a card and a piece of equipment. Now they only have 2 cards in hand, which, they can still deal so much damage with that. Yeah. Cool, and then we draw into a non-attack hand, but thankfully we have become the Arc Knight here, so we can go and fish for an attack. And we also have Moderate Tide, so actually we can do a decent amount of damage on the next turn. But we will need our whole hand to do it. Because Become the Arc Knight is effectively 2 cards from your hand to go find 1 from your deck. Right, it's -1 for -1 card always. I definitely want to play a Morven Skies, and I will need my final card to pitch for resources. Yep, Dash player coming at me for a whole bunch of 3s with the pistol. And then they T-bone without boosting. So yeah, I just take it. That's effectively just another pistol hit. So yeah, just take it. I've got my full hand. I'm 14 life points behind though. But I'll be coming in with a decent amount of damage this turn, so I think that sacrifice had to be made. And my opponent did end without any counters on the items, so that's nice to see. Yep, so water type become. Yep, and I discard the yellow Morven Skies because I'll be playing the red one. And I basically do the same thing I did on, well, my turn 1 of the game, where I become... Oh, actually, no, I think at that point, I do a reverse. On turn 1, I use Become to find Morven Skies. Now I use Become to find the attack. So, yep, Spellblade Assault, when it's a moderate tide turn, is awesome. I create 5 rune chants, which is really nice, and I'm representing a lot of damage. Yep, so this is representing 12 damage, 8 arcane, 4 physical, and on hit create 4 more rune chants. So my opponent does need to do something about this. Yep, so they pitch for 6 arcane and 5 arcane and to take 3. And then they block like that. And yeah, so given that I got 3 cards from my opponent and they have no counters on the items, I believe I decide to not attack with Rosetta here. The reason for that is attacking with Rosetta, uses all my rune chants this turn, and next turn I'll have 0 rune chants. So if I want to try and keep up the tempo and keep taking cards out of my opponent's hand, I really need to conserve my rune chant resources. And keeping them there means that stuff like Amplify the Arc Knight is free. It means that if I draw a Sonata, I could do like somewhat of a decent pop Skeletor play Sonata turn. So yeah, I just passed. I don't want to waste my rune chance, especially when my opponent didn't have counters on items. And so they were left with a red there, and they just put 1 counter on the item, so that's really nice for us. Yeah, because they use their blues to pitch for Arcane. And then they blocked with a red and just have one red remaining. Cool. So I start this turn with a Whisper. And starting with a non-attack means that when I play Gloom Veil, it'll definitely have go again. Because Viserai will trigger, creating me an aura. I see 2 blue Morbin Skies up there. Yeah, don't need both of them. Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, right. So, right. So I think, yeah, just going back to what I was saying earlier about just trying to maintain tempo. Like, this Dread Triptych is still threatening a decent amount. You know, if my opponent doesn't block the Arcane completely, I'll get a Rune Chant. If they don't block the Dread Triptych completely, I get a Rune Chant. And I get to arsenal my Swarming Gloomveil. So yeah, I remember thinking about just, I need to make sure I don't have an off turn where my opponent can steal the tempo back from me. So that was the reasoning behind doing it this way. Because this is still representing 9 damage, plus, you know, +1 if they don't block the Arcane fully, and +1 if they don't block the physical fully. So, yep. Okay, so they just take it all, and I get my 2 extra rune chance, and then I get to arsenal the Swarming Gloomveil. So at this point, I've closed the life gap between us, but my opponent has a full hand. So yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, so it's another high octane. I guess, yeah, you can expect that from a dash. If they took all that damage, you're gonna get another high octane turn coming at you. Oh, okay, and then they spark your genius. And I remember thinking, I was really nervous that they would find a dissolution sphere, but I think they didn't want to spend 4 resources for it. They ended up finding Signal Gem, which is also really bad for Viserai. Because then if I want to trigger Viserai, I can only start my turn with a non-attack, and I can't play any non-attacks for the rest of the turn to keep triggering Viserai. And it just so means that I'll just need to have a bunch of go again attacks, which isn't easy to get. Also, just looking at my hand and having, you know, three non-attacks obviously isn't great when I see that. Yep. So I start blocking with equipment. I think I'm planning to pop Skeletor next turn, which is why I block with Skeletor. And since my Skull Cap is on right now, I might as well just use the block. Because if I get a good Sonata, it's likely that they'll end up lower than me next turn. Yep, so I take the 3. They only have 1 action point. Oh wait, no, they have to go again, so yeah. Smashing Good Time is a tech I bring in just for dash. You know, if you manage to pop one of the items, it's just really strong. Like if you pop an induction chamber, it cripples their attack like a lot. Okay, so my opponent didn't want to get stuck on a bunch of blues, so he just pitched the items. So this is the last pistol hit for this turn. And I think I'm planning what I'm doing on the next turn. And I think I decided I want to try and arsenal this Smashing Good Time. So yeah, I just take that pistol hit. 9 life behind, but you know, my opponent didn't like sort of got a bit of tempo, but I mean I'm coming back on them with 4 cards total. The Signal Jammer though makes it really awkward. So yeah, so I pitch my Morbin Skies because I mean I can't play it this turn if I'm playing to Sonata. So I just pitch it to the Sonata, so X is 3, so I reveal 6 cards. Alright, so nice. I get 3 attacks here, which is very nice. None of them have go again though, so it means I can only play like one of them this turn. And we also can't use our spellbound creepers, because we already played a non-attack this turn in the Sonata, and the Signal Jam is active, so it's really just one of those attacks I can play this turn. My opponent takes the full 3 arcane damage from Sonata. I guess they notice that I have no go again, and I won't be able to get it. So, well, I had my Gloom Veil in Arsenal, so that is a go again attack, which is very nice. So my next attack would have been discounted because of the Skeletor buff, so I could have played the Ninth Blade actually, with the 1 floating, and Ninth Blade gets discounted twice, basically. One from its own ability, one from the Skeletor. But then I'll be left with Gloomville in Arsenal, and I want to make sure I get Smashing Good Time in Arsenal. And I'll be left with 2 Amplify the Arknights in hand when all my rune chants would have been gone if I just played the Ninth Blade. So I elected to just do 2 separate attacks this turn, use my Gloomville, freeze up my Arsenal, and I get to come in with another attack. I'm just showing my opponent the cards I got from Sonata, since that's open information. So this Gloomveil is coming in for 4 rune chants and 3 with go again, 3 physical with go again. Soaring Gloomveil is actually such a good card in Viserai. Okay, so they block the physical completely. Yeah, so now I'm thinking... Now I'm thinking of how I can just most efficiently attack. And I believe what I like to do is create a rune chant off of Grasp, and then I can play one of my amplifiers. It would have been nice to have been able to pitch to Grasp before playing the Gloomveil, which would have meant, you know, it would get the +1 physical. But I started a turn with 4 rune chants, right? So Grasp would have costed too much. Yep. So they block it out, which is really nice. It means I get to Arsenal this thing. I took out all the cards in the hand. They're coming at me with no cards and no counter on pistol. So tempo is firmly on our side, and I need to make sure that I can keep it. So remember that I would like to play my Smashing Good Time from Arsenal here, but the Signal Jammer means I can only play 1 non-attack this turn. So I need to time when I do my Smashing Good Time well. If I start with it, then my opponent will just block it out, and I don't get its, frankly, quite devastating effect against Dash. So what I'm debating here is whether I want to Creepers out the Smashing Good Time after playing an attack, so that, you know, hopefully my opponent doesn't block the first attack completely and I can still get the on hit. The unfortunate thing is I don't really have a follow-up after that to get a +3 attack from Smashing Good Time, because his Amplify the Arknight just costs too much. And the other thing I'm thinking is, since I can only play 1 non-attack this turn, and I want that to be the Smashing Good Time, I want to try and Arsenal this red Morven Skies. Because Morven Skies is what allows me to keep up the tempo. Right, because that unlocks the cookie cutter thing I was telling about. Morven Skies and attack and Rosetta. It's a lot of damage. Morven Skies really enables that. So if I don't Arsenal this Morven Skies, I may just have an off turn next turn. My opponent can come back. So yeah. So I'm sort of baiting my opponent here. This is coming just 1 arcane for physical. And if they take this arcane, then my meet and greet has go again. So I'm sort of forcing my opponent, or rather, yeah, baiting my opponent into blocking this arcane. They don't take it though. So they don't take the bait, which is good of them. But like I said, they don't completely block out the meet and greet. So then I Creepers and Smashing Good Time as an instant before the meet and greet hits. So I get its on hit to destroy an item. So yeah, go ahead and destroy that induction chamber. Definitely choosing Induction Chamber over Purify here. Because, yeah, Induction Chamber basically gives a full extra pistol hit, which is like 3 damage, versus Purify gives +2, I suppose, because of the 2 Induction Chambers. So yeah. So I do this, and now my next attack, my next attack action card this turn has +3. So I could pitch the Red Morven Skies to play this Amplify, and that gives me my +3 damage now, but I'll be sacrificing my Red Morven Skies. And like I said, at this point, I'm only concerned about maintaining my tempo here. I'm more concerned about maintaining my tempo here. So I think what I do is just pitch my Amplify to create a Rune Chant and then come in Rosetta, which is still a lot of damage, and lets me keep my Morven Skies so that I don't... So I am at less risk to break on the next turn. Yep. There you go. And his Rosetta is still coming for 6, so it's still threatening a lot. Bummer to miss the +3 from the Smashing Good Time, but I mean, getting the item is definitely the more important thing there. Yep, so they block 3 of the 4 arcane, take 1, and they block the physical. Now they only have 1 card in hand. So that's really nice. Oh, the 1 card in hand, you know, with dash, if that's a blue, they can still come with 2 3 damage pistol shots. Yeah, and that's what they do. We did draw Moderate Tide though, and we do have that Red Morven Skies in Arsenal. So we have a decent follow-up. No resources means that I actually can't afford to block here. I would love to block at least one of the pistol shots. So for example, if the Smashing Good Time was a blue, I could Moderate Tide, Morven Skies, pitch the blue to amplify, and then Rosetta afterwards. And then that means I have 1 card left over to block. But the way it worked out is Amplify is going to cost me 1, and then Rosetta is going to cost me 1, so I'm going to need to pitch 2 reds. And that means that leaves me no cards to block. Yep, so I take the 3 to give it go again. And they come in another 3. Although my opponent is getting in that sort of spooky HP range, where they really need to start worrying about the Rune Chant pings. Yep. I go pitch this, Amplify costs just 1. Okay, 2 off of it, and this is threatening an on-hit, create 4 Rune Chants, so... Yep, opponent has to do something about it. Okay, so they block like this, and yeah, so I am considering just arsenaling the Smashing Good Time for next turn, since I have taken 3 cards from my opponent already. But given that I'm at 4, I actually no longer have a life buffer where I can just let the dash keep, you know, a blue in hand, because then that's 2 3 damage pistol shots. So I will need to start using cards from my hand. So I decided just Rosetta, force a card out of the hand, or they take 6 total. The Smashing Good Time at this point, I deemed that it would be just too slow. Even though I could do the Spellbound Creepers thing again, if I need to use cards from my hand to make that happen, it's just not going to be good. Yep, so my opponent takes that damage. And I dealt arcane damage to them, so my creepers hang around. Oops, TTS issues, the blue went to the bottom of the deck. Yep, and then they're doing the exactly what we suspected. 1 blue in hand, and then 2 3 damage pistol shots. Yeah, so I'm looking at his Rattlebones and trying to see what's in my graveyard, see what I can do, because I know I'm losing at least one card from my hand this turn. And then I realize how insanely bonkers just having a blue Rattlebones and in your hand and Swarming Gloomveil in your graveyard. Because what you can do is pitch the blue to Rattlebones, play the Swarming Gloomveil for free, since it costs 0. You create a Rune Chant so the Gloomveil has go again, and you still have 1 floating, so then you can Rosetta afterwards for 4. That so with those 2 cards in hand, a blue and Rattlebones, with Gloomveil in your graveyard, you are representing 8 damage with 2 cards, which is, I mean, okay, I guess when you say 8 damage, it's like, oh, it's like, doesn't sound that impressive given that E-Strike, with another card in hand without, all those steps comes in for 7 off of 2 cards and has all these other modes. But in this sort of situation, when we're down like 3-4 health, it's huge. Yeah, so I decide I just don't need the other 2 cards in my hand. Just need a blue and this Rattlebones. So I think I end up blocking the 3 hits with those. For a second, I was considering whether I want to Arsenal the Rune Flash. Rune Flash is a very strong card to Arsenal, but I think it was too risky. Especially since my opponent's the one who needs to be more scared of my arcane damage right now. So yeah, there we go. I do the pitch Rattlebones, banish Gloomveil, play it, create a Rune Chant. It has go again. I have 1 floating, and I've played a non-attack and an attack this turn, so Rosetta's active. Yeah, this just feels so strong. Yep, pitch the arcane and it blocks, so they take 1 arcane still. Left with only 1 card in hand, and this time they have no counters on their items. So them having this 1 card now is actually pretty fine. Yep, so they go ahead and load everything. They could have come in with 2 pistol shots for 2, or 1 pistol shot for 3, or just load up like what they did. So yeah, they just loaded up, which is scary because now, just leaving them 1 card in hand threatens a 2 times 3 again. And I've drawn no attacks. So I'm just looking through my graveyard, trying to figure out what the odds are that I can hit an attack off this Sonata. And I believe I try and play it safe and still pitch into the Sonata. Yeah, so I pitch 2 into it, so I get to see 4 cards. Because again, right, this is one of those situations where if I don't get an attack in my hand, it's so bad I probably just lose the game on the spot. So I do find an attack. Unfortunately, all of these attacks are actually very expensive. So for example, if I found like a meet and greet, or even like my one-off Vexing Malice, I could play this Morbin Skies from my hand, give that attack go again, use the 1 floating to play the meet and greet or Vexing Malice, and then pitch to read the runes to Rosetta afterwards. Yeah. But I get these, and obviously Ninth Blade just doesn't do anything for me here. So I'm deciding between Dread Triptych or Amplify, and Dread Triptych just makes more sense. Either way, I need to pitch 3 to play either one of those cards. And Dread Triptych just has more upside. Yep, so I grab it, and then I'm forced to pitch my Morbin Skies through a Dread Triptych. My opponent did block the Arcane, so I'm just gonna get 2 Rune Chants off of this, and then if this hits, I get a 3rd Rune Chant. Yep, and they use their last Skullcap charge to block it. And then, yeah, my Creepers is gonna explode this turn because I didn't deal arcane damage, so I just use it one last time, might as well. And then I get to play this red, read the runes. It brings me up to 6 rune chance. So, yeah, a bit of a weak turn there in terms of getting cards out of my opponent's hand, but I have set up 6 rune chance here. So, you know, I don't need much to threaten cards out of their hand on the next turn. So yeah. So they come in with this, and I'm looking at my Amplify thinking, you know, as if I just keep this Amplify in hand, I can just play it next turn for free. It's 6 arcane, 4 physical. Rest of my hand I can just use to block. Oh, right. And then they, oh yeah, I remember this. Right, and then they pop Goliath Gauntlet and come in for CNC for 8 damage. So, yeah, pretty strong there. But I think my plan is still the same. I just block, keep amplifying my hand. Because they end up doing 8 damage instead of like another 2 pistol shots. Oh, another 1 pistol shot and something else. I will have to take a bit of damage to keep this amplify, but yeah. I think blocking out is just, that's just a death sentence. Like, they come back at me with 4 cards, I'll never get tempo back again. Whereas taking like 2 damage now, I can use my last grasp and these 2 cards in my hand to block 6, take the 2 damage, and then come with Amplify, which would threaten 3 cards out of my opponent's hand. So, yeah. That to me seems like the better play. Right, and I was also deciding whether I want to block with the grasp or not, and I think I ended up doing so. The main reason being that I know my opponent runs T-bones, right? I've seen a blue and a red. Maybe they also run the yellow, which means that if they draw T-bone, they could sort of force me into very inefficient block with the grasp. For example, if they play a yellow T-bone, or yeah, if they play a yellow T-bone, I need to block with my grasp, but I can't block out the full damage, so I'm leaking a damage there. So, yeah. Go ahead, block with the grasp, and 2 cards in my hand for a total of 6. Take the 2 damage here. Yeah. The unfortunate thing is that this means that it just take 1 damage from this, so you know, they need to pitch 2 cards to block the rune chance. And then they need to put at least 1 card in front of this. So if they do that this turn, they'll go down to 1, which means their Skullcap is turned back on, which means my Rosetta doesn't just automatically win me the game. So that was an argument for not using Grasp there. But and I liked it to just use it because I don't want to get caught in an inefficient block when we're this low. You know, that extra card will, like, you know, does matter. So yeah. So I block, and do this. Cool. And then, alright, and then they just pass. And that looked really weird, right? Like, why, like, couldn't they have blocked with that card? And then use one of their blues to like pistol shots, but actually turned out that card they are still. I only found this out later in the game. That's after the game was over. That card's actually a Dissolution Sphere, so they actually couldn't have blocked with it. They could have pitched with it to maybe pistol shot me once, but I think what they had to play for now is just for me to brick, so that they can play that sphere, and then that would probably just destroy me. So I'm just thinking of the sequencing here. There's basically 2 options here. I do need to start with Swarming Gloomveil, and I do need to give it go again somehow. So 2 options are I pitch my Whisper to make a rune chant off of Grasp and then Swarming Gloomveil, or I just play the Whisper and then play Swarming Gloomveil, which will generate a rune chant off of Viserai, and so it has go again. And I actually think I made a wrong decision here. I think I decided to pitch to Grasp. So right, so pitching to Grasp means that I can just play the meet and greet with the 1 floating I have after the Swarming Gloomveil, which means I get the Arsenal to read the runes, which is actually pointless. There is no point at this stage in the game to Arsenal read the runes. I no longer have my creepers, and I'm not, just at this point, I'm not going to be spending a full turn just reading the runes. That'll just lose me the game. So it probably would have been better just play the Whisper so I can opt to, and then play Swarming Gloomveil and pitch the Read Runes to meet and greet. Yep, so Gloom is coming for 1 Arcane, 3 Physical, and go again. And yeah, what I'm focusing on right now is basically just mixed damage, right? As long as I can present enough mixed damage to my opponent, they will be forced to block with all the cards in their hand. Yep, and then I meet and greet, and that's 4. So that's the last 2 cards in the hand got, unless they run a defense reaction, which I don't think they are. I mean, we haven't seen a defense reaction all the way until now. So forced to block this. I get an Arslan's Read Runes, which is actually kind of useless. It honestly I could have been punished for it if you just get stuck there. If I wouldn't mind just to block out a bit more. But then I draw back into a blue with Rattlebones in hand. So that's just such a strong combo that I believe the game ends on this turn. I can make it end on this turn. Yeah, so right. So right now what I'm thinking is whether I can make my Gloomveil come in for 4 physical and like a rune chant behind it. Which means that single play takes 3 cards out of my opponent's hand. 1 to block the rune chant, 2 to block the 4 physical, and then I come in a Rosetta, which will just seal the deal. Remember, my opponent's Skullcap is on, so if I do leave them with enough blues in hand, they can still block out the Rosetta. So, yeah, so I pitched to Grasp first to create the first aura for Gloomveil, and then I play the Rattlebones. And then now, when I play this Gloomveil, it creates a rune chant off of Viserai. So now it's coming in for 4 physical with this rune chant behind it, and I'm floating 1. Yeah, so at this point, it's just, yeah. So my opponent, I mean, beyond like defense reaction, like Sigils of Solace, like there's no hope. And I did catch them with an item there, so yeah, this is done. They have to use 2 cards to block this, and now Rosetta for 1, 2, and 2. Yep, so that was the game there. It was really tight. It was looking really scary for us because they were, my opponent got like 2 items very early on in the game. There we go. They're showing me the Dissolution Sphere in the Arsenal. Yeah, my opponent got 2 items very early on in the game, so it was looking very scary for us. Yeah, so I think it was important to just make sure you keep up the tempo, stuff like arseling the Morbin Skies, stuff like, not using up all your rune chants. And like saving them sometimes for the next turn is pretty important. And of course, getting that Smashing Good Time, getting that to hit, removing 1 Induction Chamber from my opponent was definitely quite game changing as well. Even though it happened quite late in the game, it cripples their like 1-2 hand card turns by a lot. So yeah, that was the game. Thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed it.